Hello everybody, this is King Tut here and welcome to another Java tutorial. Have you guys wanted to put a bunch of values into one variable? Well, you're in luck because I'm going to show you just that in this video. So the name for that is an array. There is a bit more complication in terms of explaining it, but when I show you how to implement arrays, you'll understand. So to implement an array, you go put in a variable type. So I put, or data type. So I put int, for example, in my case, and let's just name it dice. Now I'm gonna tell you why in a bit. And then you set it equal to new that data type. You put int. And then instead of a parentheses, because usually when you stumble upon new this or new scanner, you have a parentheses. This, you put in a bracket. There's different ways. So there's int like this. So that's also acceptable. So when you put in, after you put in new int, you have to give it a value. So in this case, we're just going to put 6 because we're doing a 6-sided die. So the reason I put dice is we're going to be making a program that rolls dice. And they're going to be functions that you guys will never hear of, like the random variable. So it's just going to be a bit more than just understanding how to implement arrays. Anyway, so to put in values into it, we're just going to assign dice and its index number. So dice 0 equal 1. And you do that you repeat that over and over again, excuse me, until you reach to index 5. Now you might be wondering, why not index 6? Well, usually, if not always, the array index always starts at 0. And then it ends in the amount of array size minus 1. So let's say you have a variable that is size 12. So the index would go from 0 to 11. If you're wondering what I mean by size, so you see this number 6 here? I'm giving the variable size 6. So you're going to be putting in 6 values into one variable and assigning it based off of 6 indexes. I was about to say 5, but you know, I meant to say, I'm trying to say 6. 3 dice. And then dice. So number 5 of index 4 and dice 5, you put in 6. So as you see here, for dice of index 0 is 1, dice of index 1 is 2, and so on and so forth until I get to the last index is equal to 6. Now this is inefficient. The best way here is to use a for loop. So let's do for int I equals to 0. I is less than dice.length. So if you want to make your life easier, instead of putting in 6, Java has a nifty feature for array to put in the length to get the size of the array. So you put in dice.length to retrieve the length of variable dice. And I++. So I made this mistake here. Don't put parentheses. You don't need it. So inside the for loop, you put in dice I equals I. And it's gonna put in dice 0 equals 0. So let's put I plus 1. So what's gonna happen here is it's gonna be dice of index 0, it's gonna be 1. Dice of index 2 is gonna be 3. I skipped over 1. So dice of index 1 is gonna be 2. Dice of index 3 is gonna be 4. Dice of index 4, so on and so forth until it reaches to the length. And I put the less than sign because the length of the dice is 6. But the index goes from 0 to 5. So if I put it equal to length or not equal to length, it's going to be or equal, less than or equal to length, then it's going to be 6, and you're going to get an exception or an error telling you out of bounds, array out of bounds, or something similar to it. I know in C++ they say array out of bounds. I think it's similar error to that in Java. So let's test this for loop by outputting the values of the dice variable. So let's do another for loop. So for J this time, that way it differentiates. And then you just take this out, system, put in system.out, out.println, and you put in dice number plus dice I. Hopefully this works. And it did. Okay, so it didn't return any error. Cannot resolve symbol. Oh, yeah, made that mistake here. It's easy to get caught up in all of that stuff. So for loop can be replaced with an enhanced for. It's just giving me a recommendation. I just want to like, this is for the sake of tutorial. Ideally, I would actually put in the same for loop and do that way for efficiency. But I want to show you this so that way you see how this whole thing works. So let's run this. And as you see here, it pretty much displayed all the dice array variable. So it's a bunch of values into the dice variable. And it's outputting based off of the index. So it's not dice number 1. So it's going to print out dice of index of 0. All right, I made another example of utilizing the random function. So what I did here was importing java.util.random with a capital R. If you put lowercase r, it's going to get you dot something else. So put a capital R on it. And then what I did is I left this int value in place, the dice variable that we saw before. And then I implemented a random function, variable, excuse me. I put random rand equal new random in parentheses. The for loop is the same. Here's where it's going to get fun. So right here is system.out.println. I implement that. This is the same, dice number colon. And then right here, I use the variable dice, but inside the bracket, this index, I put rand.nextInt6. So it's going to go from 0 to 5 based on like the index itself, and it's going to do it randomly within this boundary. So when I run this, it's going to get you a number from 1 to 6. So this is 4. When I run this again, gets you 3. And again, 3. And again, 5. And again, 4. 3. And then you get 6, which is like a lucky roll. So this is very, very useful for that. Also, arrays are useful for implementing a bunch of sprites. So instead of using like player 1, player 2, player 3, you could utilize array to put player of index 0, player of index 1, player of index 2. So so this is really, really, very, really useful in when you're doing game development. Also, when you want to spawn your enemies. However, spawning your enemies is very different because the array we're learning about is not resizable. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to implement an array that can be resized. So be on the lookout for that. So thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope this helps. And if you follow along in this video, you literally made a dice game. You could change it, make it a bit prettier, whatnot. Anyway, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.